Are collectibles going extinct?
And are Neanderthals coming back?
Let us tell you.
Welcome to the Nerd News Podcast, starring Tyson Cox and Tyler Waltz.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Nerd News. My name is Tyler Waltz, and with me, as always,
Is Tyson Cox. And joining us this week is...
Brian Pitre.
Yeah.
What are we talking about, Tyler?
All right, we got a couple of fun, goofy things to talk about for part two, but we're going to get started on collectibles. So collectibles is a weird thing that I believe really kind of peaked and started to take off in like the late 70s and 80s, because that's when like, you know, He-Man and franchises and like TV shows that were really just big toy commercials and stuff like that came out. So we're basically discussing what happened to that. And I think we all have a couple of different theories that kind of interline and mix and match, and we can kind of go from there.
Yeah. Well, I think we can start with kind of where I feel collectible culture kind of started was when Star Wars came out, and it was like the first movie to have a direct toy link with it, like immediately.
Yeah, and the toys weren't even actual Star Wars toys, as Brian and I were chatting about earlier.
Wait, what?
So Star Wars collectibles started out as a bunch of toys that got made, and then they were like, well, we need Star Wars stuff, and they were like, we'll just repaint them.
What?
Yeah. That was a big part of it.
Yeah.
So
Like-
a lot of the original toys are just repainted X other
Bandai,
series.
I believe. Bandai was who had it. And, yeah.
Just anime? Just
Well, it was rough because it's like they had the ability to get out this action figure. No one knew that Star Wars was going to be the movie that it was.
yeah.
Right.
Nobody was expecting the fan favor that it had.
Yeah.
God, could you imagine just not knowing and then watching it and the set just like what?
Yeah.
Mind blowing.
Because I grew up watching the Star Wars movies, because 1999 was when The Phantom Menace came out, right?
I think so.
I was 4 years old. So even then, I still didn't really have a concept of it. So my first experience was finding out about like episode 3 coming out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cool. And then all the confusion with episode 4, 5, 6, and all that nonsense.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
did you have any Star Wars toys or anything like that?
Yeah. I did growing up because my dad loved Star Wars. So a lot of the stuff that I had was because my dad liked Star Wars and was like, you like Star Wars. And he was right. He was.
What about you, Brian? What did you have any Star Wars or what did you collect as a kid?
I'm weird. It's funny that you guys are starting with like Star Wars collectibles because I'm like a 90-year-old man trapped in like a 40-year-old man's body. Like I think about my grandmother went through Depression era, like was a post-Depression baby. So collectibles for them had always been a thing, whether it be thimbles, whether it had been spoons, coins. Like collectibles have just been a thing because it was a way to have an asset.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
It was a
true.
way to store an asset because as you kept it longer, it was like stocks. It went up in value. And that concept like just shifted over into toys. I was the kid that was obsessed with Ninja Turtle. So
Nice.
Ooh, nice. It's a good one to be obsessed with.
Yeah.
I had those original, the heavy duty plastic ones with the stamp in the foot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were my thing. And I had everything. I had everything except the airplane. My friend Don had the airplane. My buddy lived across the street from me. He had the big dope airplane. And I was like, just go to Don's house and play with it.
Yeah. right.
Nice.
Yeah, Don's got the hookup
Yeah, we
for
don't
any
drop $100
arrow.
on an airplane.
Yeah.
But no, I collected all collectible. My grandma was a big collector, so I got into like the concept of collecting things. Like I collected Spider-Man comics. I had the direct edition subscription club.
Yeah.
Nice.
I had baseball cards. It's huge. I had so many baseball cards. It was obscene.
I don't understand baseball cards. Just as like a general thing. Like Magic, I get like you have a game with it. You get
Yeah.
a Pokemon, you have a game
Yeah.
with it. Baseball cards? You can't play a game of baseball cards.
Well, you could if you were in that culture. It's not a game. It's the ability to trade for value. It's literally
Yeah.
stock market with cards. Like there was a whole book I got when I was like 7. My grandfather got it for me, and it was just this little square paperback reader, and it taught you about the value of cards and what they meant and why trading cards were meant to be traded.
Right.
Because if you were on a mission to have, like, say I wanted every player from the Orleans of 1986.
Yeah.
As a collective through Top Deck, if I had the whole team from that year, in mint condition, jeez.
Oh,
It became the game was collecting. There was no game to it. It was the idea of, well, my buddy opened like 5 packs of Top Deck the other day, and he got like 6 players from the Braves in '92. I need all 6 of those. So what am I willing to trade for that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That makes more sense.
Also, like sports stuff, like if you're going for Magic and nerd stuff, most of the time there is a game connected to it. But like anything sports, like a signed jersey, that's memorabilia.
That's memorabilia.
You're getting a card that is a keepsake of that legendary player's snapshot in time.
Okay.
Like it's more along the lines of like, I have this rare thing to commemorate this person.
And it's cool that because he's right, and it's where you got it from too. A lot of times your collectible status came from there's not a lot of it. It didn't get produced. So there was this company called Grandmother's Cookies, and it was based in Texas. Yeah, it was like this big like a Otis Spunkmeyer, like you ordered the cookies online and they had them in certain stores. Well, they at one point did a partnership with Nolan Ryan, and I had this stack of uncut baseball cards that were only made by like I think it was Miss Granny's Cookies.
Okay.
And they were stupid valuable because they came off the mill. They weren't cut yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had the full sheet of the cards. Yeah, and like that's what creates the valuables.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the finding that merch.
There's
Finding
also
that memorabilia.
misprints and things that went wrong that were caught, and then it's like, oh, we fixed it.
Yep.
Everyone wants the misprint.
Yeah, true.
Almost all
That's
the time.
actually what's happening with Magic right now.
Yeah.
There's a flood of misprints.
Yep.
And it's killing the collectiveness.
Yeah, well, I was actually going to transfer. So that's like the core concept of collectability. What about is like what's going on with today's culture with like Funko Pops and Magic the Gathering cards having 27 releases this year?
Well, I
Almost
think
48.
48?
I think it's 48 plus.
Are you counting like doubling up the arena?
I think because if you consider jump starts too.
Oh my God, there's so much to it. And then also, like, what about digital collectibles? Like, what actually is value there? Like,
those bother me the most of everything. It's like I have such a hard time understanding because if I get a baseball card, even if I don't care about baseball, if I have no interest in baseball, I do not care, but I have a physical thing that can represent some kind of value.
and you can burn it for warmth if needed.
Right. Yeah. Something can happen with it. The digital collectibles and like that whole NFT movement just infuriated me because at the end of the day, what do you really have?
Yeah, what's
like,
the value there?
Yeah, what is the value there?
I get it to a degree. Okay, so for example, have you ever had a picture or an image, a meme, a photo of yourself or your family or something that you had on a computer from like 10 years ago, and that computer's gone now? So is that image. Yeah. It's gone.
Yeah.
And if it was something of value that others valued and you still had it, it has value at that point. So it's weird. It's weird how that works.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the images thing is weird to me because especially with like nowadays technology, like an NFT, it's like, do you want to pay this much money for this exclusive picture? And then they show you the picture and then it's like screenshot.
Yeah, but you don't have that image now. You've got a screenshot
Shot of the image.
Yeah.
You own that. So NFTs actually have a lot of value outside of the initial, like that was just people money grabbing.
Oh, absolutely.
Like people laundering money. But
yeah,
you can
there's
actually,
a huge like Logan Paul scandal right now with NFTs, which is bonkers. Like I watched this little documentary thing about it, and it's like people are like, I put $500,000 in this NFT thing, and I don't think it's happening anymore.
Yep.
Like,
Well,
gone.
and people are like split sharing owning actual Magic cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's them investing in the future value of it, which that sort of makes sense. But NFTs actually have they could have a lot of theoretical value in the fact that you could transfer an in-game item into other games.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like The Sims.
Big pushback against DLC that was NFTs in games.
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest gaming like.
Well, do you remember Second Life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like, there are people who made their living making houses,
Yeah.
fake houses, and then selling them online
Yep.
to other players that wanted these houses or clothes or whatever they designed. Yeah. So you had a whole.
It literally is an entire parallel economy. It's insane. It's crazy.
And then, so sort of back on the physical collectibles, like I want to talk about Funko Pops a little bit.
Okay.
Because why? Like I get like you want to own them, but like whenever I see something get produced, it's no longer any rarity in it. Much like with the Magic, we kind of talked about that on our previous episode. But there's no rarity in it when you can just go add to cart, buy, you get them all, but everyone else also has them all.
Well, the question is, I think that goes back. It's production value.
Yeah.
Like when like Tyler was mentioning, like there used to be companies like Seth MacFarlane. You bought action figures that were made by Seth MacFarlane because they were what they were. They were. It was just Spawn. I mean, everybody else could have it, but there was a limited production, and the limited production is what created the value on it. It's kind of like cars. If they only made 3,000 of them 60 years ago, well, once they're gone, they're gone. And if you've got one, what you doing, blowing?
I thought I was going to sneeze. I was like, I'm feeling a sneeze.
Oh, baby. NFTs. Get me going.
Yeah. I think another thing.
NFT stands for nasal fun time. Okay.
Yeah. Another thing that I think what keeps that franchise going is I think they have a Nintendo strategy with their products, which Nintendo with Amiibos creates fake scarcity. Like they know roughly X amount of people want this toy. We are going to purposefully make half of that. So that way it's guaranteed to sell out. It's now a collectible thing, and we'll do another print much later, but it creates a urge for it because the pop stuff that you see on the shelves of like comic shops and stuff, that's what they print tons of to get you interested, because I like Superman, I'll get this pop figure, wonder what else they have, and then I Google it and there's some super rare Superman
okay,
issue.
so Funko does have
It's a Beanie Baby.
Yes.
And it's also, I think, because I have a friend who collects Funkos, and she loves, like, has a wall in her house with so many.
People get fired up about them.
Well,
some of them are cool.
Well, I was about to say, I didn't know this till I bought her one for Christmas one year, and I bought it from Walgreens, and it was a Walgreens exclusive. Only Walgreens stores had that Funko Pop, so you couldn't get it at Toys R Us. You couldn't get it at Barnes and Noble. You could only buy it during its limited release at that
all right.
So you have companies that get involved in it, and Beanie Baby did the same thing. It was very similar. No, I think to answer your question, I think the problem is our current economy, the cost of collectibles.
How so? Like they're too expensive?
It's not even that they're too expensive. When eggs cost $5 and you spend $12 on a Funko Pop.
That's a lot of eggs.
That's a lot of eggs. That's a big difference in our economy. And I think the value of collecting things is going away. The idea of collecting things the way it used to be is going away. Now people get things just because it's their thing.
Yeah.
Like that's your thing. Like, you know. Yeah.
I think it's a lot of oversaturation because in the 70s and 80s, if He-Man came out with a line of toys, you knew that it was made by blank company, right? But now there's the Funko Pops. There's this other company. There's this other, like, we make cute versions of the characters and we do this with the characters. There's so many, none of it in actuality is going to have a trade value because of the oversaturation of them, which was a big part of the appeal of collectibles. Was this might be worth a lot of money someday.
I think that's still there. Yeah. Like I look at, Hallmark does ornaments.
Okay.
They have very signature ornaments. Their ornaments get released. They don't do re-releases. Oh. So, and it's very, like, there's a whole subculture of people who collect Hallmark ornaments for Christmas. And there's always that one that's got a very limited release that people are pursuing. Like, okay, Hallmark puts out the letters, like your initials. It's just a singular letter. I think they change them every year. So if you got a particular style of your initial, it was from that year. No. So it's like little stuff like that. If you got a release, there might have only been 4 Snoopies that came out. Yeah. So to get all 4, you've got a valuable collection for someone who wants it. I think collectability, the oversaturation is now the user. So the product is now having to keep up with the user, I think there's so many more people now into collectibles because it is more accessible with the... Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's a matter of finding who wants these 4 Snoopies. Somebody does. Somebody does. It's out there.
Yeah. Do you guys want more Snoopies? Let us know. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. Brian, how can we find you on the internet, bud?
Brian Pitre Comedy, just about everywhere.
Yeah, excellent. But we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back because science isn't going too far. Welcome back, everybody, from the break. We are going to be here discussing a bit of a science conundrum. Brian, you brought this to our attention. You want to bring it up?
Yeah. This is something I got real nerdy into, real nerdy. It's Neanderthals.
Yeah, and what's science trying to do with them?
They want to bring them back.
Why? How? So many questions.
A lot of questions. So, if you follow pop science, or if you're a person who's into, like genetics and ancient things, or even if you just like weird science,
80s movies, yeah, they're good.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I've there's been a flood of extinct animals that scientists have been looking at the ability to bring back. There are many things. There are several extinct animals that we have brought back. Not in a mass scale. There's a particular frog.
Just enough for rich people to own as pets?
Yeah, right.
It was more of a, let's see what happens.
like
They've been gone for a long time. Let's see if we can reacclimate them to the world as it is now.
Only there was a saga of movies that
Yeah.
taught us how bad of an idea it was to bring back ancient creatures.
Man, we're gonna bring
somebody should make those movies.
We're going to bring back a frog that died 200 years ago, and it's going to be like, what? Women can vote?
Yeah. What happened?
The world's really gone downhill.
Yeah.
We've been doing that, playing Jurassic Park for a while now.
Don't like it.
I think that the scariest one, in my opinion, is the Neanderthal. It is a realistic possibility that within the next few years, as cloning technology gets better, we could possibly be bringing back an ancient hominid.
Feels rude.
No. How about that?
Yeah.
Like there was an ethical debate about the woolly mammoth because a couple of years ago we found a very viable source for DNA, and we shaving through an iceberg found a woolly mammoth that was still with blood in it. Like still liquid. And so we were able to be like, oh, look at all these genetics. We can sequence them.
Yeah.
We can. So do you know the process of bringing back an extinct animal? What we usually
When
do?
a mommy and a daddy really love each other.
So I don't know the distinction between like the extinct and the normal cloning stuff, because I went on a deep dive for, was it Molly the sheep? Yeah. That terrified me. I didn't like that at all.
Is a small difference between those.
Yeah.
So let's use the mammoth for example. What we would do is we would find the most viable cell, any cell, pick one, hair, blood, something like that, likely blood or something tissue related. But we find a very healthy, viable cell. We strip the DNA out of it from that mammoth, and then we go take an egg from a viable creature that could hold or host the DNA that this is. This DNA has to be close enough to this other shell that it can live within that shell. So we'll take an egg from, say, like an African elephant, massive elephant.
Yeah.
We'll spin the elephant's DNA out of the egg, place in the DNA from the mammoth. Because it's compatible enough, the DNA for the mammoth can grow inside the egg of the African elephant. Then take that, we inseminate the African elephant with the new embryo, and bada bing, bada boom, cook it at 375. Eventually, you've got a baby mammoth falling out of this mama elephant.
Yeah. I like how we said, oh, we scrapped it for ethical reasons. That sounds like it happened. That sounds like, oh, yeah, we shut it down. Wink.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The testing is never going to be fully disclosed as to how far we went into figuring out if it works or not.
And it also depends on the country as well, because there's been many a times where it's like, this has been scrapped for ethical reasons. And then like a couple years ago, like this weird report came out of like the chimera stuff that China was working on, not to get too Alex Jonesy over here, but that was confirmed. It's like, what are you doing mixing human DNA with pigs, guys?
Wait, what?
Yeah, you can do.
You didn't hear about that?
Well, so that's been happening for a long time.
Yeah.
And it was due to political reasons why we stopped research on it. That's been since like the late 70s with genome research.
So we're making the cops from Duke Nukem?
Yeah. So long story short, and a lot of people make jokes that just put a coin in the Alex Jones was right, but whatever, shotgun blast.
Yeah.
We get it. But long story short, there was a scientific proposal to mix human DNA with pigs, so that way their organs could be harvested for transplants,
Okay.
which is such a scary sentence.
Well,
but we were
had
like,
been doing it. We
Yes.
had been using pig organs, and it would just make it easier
Yeah.
for the transition of the transplant.
A little
Yes.
Greg in it.
Yeah,
yeah,
Greg in it.
right. But they were like, for ethical reasons, we cannot keep splicing the human and pig DNA because Lord knows what's going to happen. But China was like, we're going to
We
keep
can.
going. Yeah, we're going to
Yeah.
keep doing it. So it's just
Wild.
one of those things where it's like science is horrifyingly scary.
Well, I mean, if you go into that level, let's bring it back full circle to the Neanderthal. So, if we were to take the mammoth effort of spinning out DNA, creating a new species, what we would be doing is the same thing: taking a viable female woman who, and I'm sure they would do genetic testing on the female to make sure that she has at least the maximum amount of existing Neanderthal DNA in her current
Yeah.
Yeah.
genome, because most of us do. If you're from Europe, you've got some level of Neanderthal DNA in
A
you.
lot of reports also say that we're 50 years from tube babies.
Yeah.
Like just fully grown in a tube, and you open
Yeah.
up the tube one day and the baby's good to go.
Oh, I thought we did that already.
We're there, but we haven't done it to where we've perfected it comfortably.
Man.
But we're pretty close. So
Yeah.
the concept still lies. So the issue becomes, yeah, we could do it, but what would happen?
Yeah. I to me it feels like it should be a no because that's so close to like our own human sentience. Like it's gonna come out and then we're gonna teach it English and how to use an iPad.
Well, the question is, what's wrong with that?
So
You know what? You got me there. It feels like we won't be nice to it.
Well, that's the other side of so
freak shows would come back is basically where it would, I think, eventually get to. 'Cause people are monsters.
Bro, he would just get his own reality show.
Yeah.
It'd be a Truman Show.
It would be so. We're first step. I'm thinking is okay. We're talking about one. It wouldn't happen with one.
No.
They don't go about an experiment with one.
Bro, the army would be like, let's make them.
Yeah.
Yeah, possibly. That's another thing.
Man.
Is okay. So Neanderthals, from every bit of research we've done, they're not different from us intellectually. They're not different from us physiology wise.
Yeah, they just got like a big jaw, right?
Not even just that. They're just a little bit shorter, a little bit stockier.
Yeah.
And from what we understand,
we could make like Lord of the Rings dwarves.
they're not even that small. They're
Yeah,
like,
no.
Like you're talking like it's been over 30,000 years since humans have lived next to another hominid.
Okay.
The idea of another creature being a human but not a human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where the line gets drawn is because if you created it, do you own it?
But yeah, and we're already pretty racist against everybody.
Yeah.
So the Neanderthals too. I'm for science. I don't like the fact that it creates some like ethical boundaries that you have to cross.
Yeah.
But scientifically, it starts opening worlds of what is predisposed through your genetics versus what's now nurtured. What part of your nature? Where does nature stop and where does nurture begin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
Oh, hang on, guys. I forgot. We've actually ran this experiment. They made a documentary about it called Encino Man.
yeah.
It was a very, very intricate story.
So a big argument that I liked when it comes to why we shouldn't do this, and I think it was another reason that they decided not to with a lot of animals, is that their genetic code is it's set up to be vulnerable to things that we have not been vulnerable to a long time. So if you do bring back like a Neanderthal or a woolly mammoth, some disease that mutated back in the day from that genetic code could mutate again. We have no defenses against it, and then it spreads like wildfire because that is something that we haven't had to deal with for 30,000 years.
So many questions.
Yeah.
How about this language?
Yeah.
A lot of it is that we don't know how they spoke because we don't have enough viable information about vocal cords and
Yeah.
other stuff like that to really be able to understand like the way the body would develop, the way the brain would develop for language in general.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Do you teach it English and then hand it an iPad?
Yeah. Do you make it a lawyer? That way we can recreate that SNL sketch where he goes, I'm just a caveman. You know,
Yeah.
modern ways confused.
Oh,
and
Geico
frightening.
commercials would get lit again.
Oh, man.
Well, there's also the downside of you don't have a lot of viable DNA. So you would end up being clones of clones of clones of clones.
And again, we saw what happened with multiplicity. Yeah.
It's 4, you know,
And-
shaving his tongue.
And
We took the razor blade out. Don't worry.
yeah, once the genes get too close, we end up with some royal family stuff, and it's just not. It's going to go downhill fast.
I think the biggest question, and one of the, because I've been watching interviews of different people who are 100% just internet nerds who are obsessed with it, and then I'll go try to like look up somebody who's like in an actual health organization or somebody who's actually researching to see the comparatives. You put 2 of those people in a room, they're going to be like us. They're going to be at a stalemate because science-wise, there's so many benefits. There's so many things we could learn about humans by bringing back an ancient hominid. But also there's so many issues with bringing back an ancient hominid.
Because it's not like we're going to bring him back and be like, well, you got to go to school, bud. You got to get a job. And you got to, it's going to be like, well, we're going to homelander you. Yeah. You live in a box.
There's a lot of questions.
Yeah. Man.
A lot of questions.
And another thing is like history has taught us that generally people are kind of monsters when it comes, like there's always the story of this scientist that sewed 2 dogs together, or this scientist that tried to do this crazy thing and transplant the head of one animal onto another.
Yeah.
If they start cloning like people and like Neanderthals and stuff, the amount of just horrific science experiments is going to be otherworldly.
Man.
The ones that are already out, and the fact that the only reason I think personally that this hasn't been pursued further is a lack of technology.
Oh, really?
I think that the ethics has nothing to do with science on this level. The lack of the ability to stabilize it. I think ethics is only holding up an argument because it hasn't been able to be done in a guerrilla effort.
Yeah, and even if they did shut it down, all it takes is for somebody with enough money to create something like SpaceX to suddenly...
And next thing you know, China's still in the moon.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're putting Neanderthals up there, and it's going to be a whole planet of Neanderthals that own the moon.
But no, science is a weird thing because ethically we can think whatever we want. There's going to be somebody that will figure it out.
Yeah.
Like there was a news article where it's like somebody was able to like put together a small nuclear reactor in their shed. How? They figured it out. That's what they did.
I mean, we're a long way away from, I think technologically, we cannot right now, realistically, even if we had a viable source for the DNA. We've got a few, but even if we had it complete, if we had it mapped and we were ready to go and somebody said, yeah, green light it, I still don't think we're ready. We still don't think I mean, the amount of psychology that would take to understand a creature like that the moment it's born. Yeah. Because we don't know. Yeah, all we know is humans. All we know is Homo sapiens. There's so many nuances to a different hominid. The concept of that.
I mean, we lived next to them in the past, right? So that means they're probably...
but it didn't go well.
We also absorbed them.
True.
Yeah. So, but we don't know if that was malicious or if it was just nature. Right. We don't know if that happened. Most of the understanding that we have is that once we started interbreeding, the Y chromosome wasn't the same for males, so it made them infertile. And so a lot of the females that were fertile, they just ended up having more Homo sapien children. Okay. Children that had more Homo sapien DNA than Neanderthal DNA. So eventually they just like fizzled out.
Well, this is absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Let us know what you guys think.
I got a new comic.
All right, guys, light a cigarette and let us know.
A whole new comic book right there.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go get a drink. Brian, thank you so much for joining us this week. Man. Where can we find you on the internet?
Brian Pitre Comedy. If you guys got Neanderthal questions, I'm there to entertain. We can talk about everything.
Yeah, Brian's a great comedian. Find him. If you see him doing a show, definitely come out and say hi.
Always.
Speaking of shows, Brian's on February 3rd. We're doing the Comics of Comics show at
Comics.
Circle City Comics, February 3rd. $15 ticket gets you a free pack of New Phyrexia. There's a stand-up show. Then we're all going to play Magic later. So
and a
come on out.
Full of laughs.
Hell yeah.
Belly full.
belly full of letters.
Yeah, and then just another side note, our website is up and launched and looking pretty, so you can buy tickets to shows such as Monster February 9th or the comic book show. So keep an eye on that. Thank you guys so much. And if you leave a review, we will read it online in the air tonight. Phil Collins, drum solo. See you guys next week.
Goodbye, everybody.
Later.
Thank you for checking out Nerd News, everybody. We don't have advertising, so you are the advertising. If you like it, tell a friend, like, comment, subscribe, even leave a review on Apple. Everything that you do to support us, we truly appreciate it. And we actually just launched our Patreon, so if you'd like to support us even more, you can go check that out. All of our content is free. We have different rewards for different tiers, so check that out. And thanks again. We'll catch you next time.